Hi, I'm Ali. I'm sitting here in my other garden, which is the Lost Plot, which is our community garden that services the Port Macquarie greater region, and I'm one of the people that got this place up and running, and it's just going from strength to strength, which is fantastic. It's one of the many things that I do to try and make a difference around making sure we all have food in our region. So I'm going to show you around my garden a bit as well. Being hands in the dirt is my happy place, but when I think about the reasons why that is, and why do I feel so good when I'm growing my own food, it's multifaceted really. It's kind of the bringing together all the things I'm passionate about. I love food, I love eating, I love cooking. And so knowing where that food's coming from and being able to just come out and get it so fresh and zinging off my tongue is really cool. I'm passionate about waste avoidance, and growing food is a really surefire way to be able to avoid a lot of packaging waste because you're growing it, and so you're avoiding all those plastics. Plus, it's the ultimate recycler. If you do have a little bit of underutilised resource, like my rambling tomato here, for example, when it goes, it put itself there, but when it's time for it to go, that becomes compost, and so then my compost becomes feeding my garden, and it also enables you to go out and collect resources that otherwise would not be being utilised, like spent coffee grounds, for example, and bring them in and actually give them another use. And I think it's also about community, because you create abundance, you share it with your friends and neighbours, and then that becomes a network where you're all growing different things and you're sharing them amongst yourselves, and then you're having feasts together. Where I started here, so I'm going to have to try and paint a picture a little bit. So this garden was very different. It was basically a car park. There were about 4 cars parked on the front all the time. I guess to go back a little bit from that, I started in when I was looking for a place to purchase. It had to have good solar access, so I knew that a primary thing for my happiness is to be able to garden, and so having a place where I could garden effectively was really important. But really I started just by doing. So when you've got a blank slate that's all grass, you go, okay, what can I get in this weekend? And for me it was lamandra, so a local hardy native that is all at the front verge, and I planted them all along this wall because I'm not a big fan of colour bond, and I wanted to hide it as much as possible. Now you can see most of that's gone now because gardens evolve. That's the beauty of them, is that they're a constant adaptation, and as you become more familiar with your site, you change what you had done. This baby was one of my first plantings, but it didn't go in until probably the second year I was here. So, and you can see now, absolutely laden with fruit. There's plenty for me and the birds. Food is a basic need of everyone, and if we don't have access to food in a changing, not just climate, but changing economy, changing everything, then we're putting ourselves at great risk. So hence sitting under my beautiful mulberry tree here, this is one of the ways that I try and make sure that I have access to food. But the minute you start growing food, you realise that it's not an easy thing. And so we need to be working together to spread the capacity for people to grow their own food, and look at how we grow food as a community, not as individuals, because at the moment I think our thinking is very much individual, and so part of part of resilience is realising that we are a community, and by doing things together we do it much more efficiently and effectively. Well, this is where we go for a stroll around the garden probably. So yeah, things like I already mentioned, the mulberry and the placement of planting. So that for me, the built environment stream and the food and land stream, they really go hand in hand in a lot of ways, because we can use our plantings to make our houses more livable. And that's what this is all about, right? It's not about climate change per se or anything. It's about being in a more comfortable place, a more comfortable lived environment, and that means having good access to healthy, nutritionally dense food, and have a comfortable space to live in. So good airflow, good shade in summer, good sunlight in winter. So they're all connected.
I'm going to recommend an action for people to do this weekend would be one of a couple of things depending on your circumstance. So if you're renting, get a pot, chuck some herbs in it or some leafy greens, because they're one of the things that A, you can really most easily buy in plastic, which is good to avoid, and B, you often have to buy more than you want. And so if you're growing it, you can just pick what you want, and even if you don't use everything you pick, you can give it to your neighbour or compost it yourself. So, but the other thing, if somebody's owns their own home, is keen on gardening, loves fruit, who doesn't like fruit? Choose the fruit that you like best and see if it grows in Port Macquarie. So I have quite a range of fruit trees here that you wouldn't necessarily think would grow in Port Macquarie. So I've got apples. There are 3 subtropical apples out the front that just give me an abundance of fruit almost all year. And then apples traditionally grow in a cooler climate because they need a chill factor, but these are subtropical apples which you can grow here. They're doing really well. A fig traditionally grows in a Mediterranean climate. My fig just gives me so many luscious figs every year. About February, March, you can see it's just starting to come into bud for its leaves to come back. And again, another, not really a climate you would think in Port Macquarie it's going to do really well. The mulberry, of course, we've already talked about. This is just the most incredible giver. And if you have children, they of course always love mulberries, but not just children. I eat a lot of them too. The dog even does sometimes. And then you've got things like the macadamia out the back here. That native to Australia, so native to north of here. This one I put in the raised box because it wasn't going to get enough sun if it was down at ground level out here. This is southwest, and you can see it's kind of going, woohoo, I like it here. I haven't got any fruit off it yet. It's only been in for, will be its 2nd year. So another couple of years probably before I get fruit off that, but well worth the time and investment if you like macadamias, which I do. And then behind that you can see the native raspberry. So this is also a great one. This is actually an Atherton raspberry, so it grows up in the tropics, but you can see it's quite happy here as well, and gives great fruit. They're not like the native raspberries you find in the bush here, which are, to my palate anyway, not as flavourful as these ones. These are really lush. And it grows by suckers, so it'll just keep growing out, and you just contain it by mowing it or pulling them out as you need.
What would be your other top couple of recommendations for plants that'll give you food and keep giving?
Well, you know, actually, I'm glad you asked me that right here, because the trusty potato. Now, potatoes are a multi-purpose, fabulous plant, because if you don't have a garden yet, they can help you make one. So they're a really good plant to build into your first initial lasagna bed. If you've got a bit of lawn, you put some wet cardboard down, you lay a straw manure, chuck some spuds in, and they will grow their roots down through all that lusciousness into the soil help break up your clay. We mostly sit on clay in our region, which is fantastic. It's really, really good soil if you can give it some organic matter. And the potatoes help you do that. They open it up, they let all the worms come in, the worms go, woohoo, we can get out and we've got air and everything, and you get spuds at the end of it. So if people can't quite muster the energy to get a pot and some soil and pop a herb in or plant a tree this weekend, come to the Lost Plot on Saturday morning, where they're from. It's going to shift to 8 to 11 soon, but it's 9 to 12 at the moment, and just meet some people who are doing gardening. You do as much or as little as you want while you're there. It's a great space to come out and hang out and meet people, and maybe take a bit of leafy greens home with you or something.